everybody. Welcome to InPsightRadio. I am your host, Danielle Egnew, and you are a fly on the wall to everywhere. How is everybody? I hope you are having a magnificent week. You know, we're getting our first thunderstorm of the Gallatin Valley up here in Gallatin Gateway outside of Bozeman. So if we get some kaboom and cracks out there, it's because we're getting absolutely rained on, which quite frankly, I'd rather have rain than snow. So I'm way okay to get rained on at this point. And this is just what happens, right? I mean, we've got not only our climate changes on the earth, but here where I'm living at the Gallatin Gateway, you know, we're almost 5,000 feet up here. So our spring drags its toes. It's getting toe draggy. But gang, we're going to make sure that in spite, even if we don't have any booms of thunder, that's kind of a bummer too. But if we do, you know what's going on. And what a fantastic roll-in for today's podcast. You know, one of the things that I think is so interesting about the way that the universe is put together is that I receive email in droves from people at one time regarding one particular subject. And our last podcast, it was demons. I was getting emails about demons. This time, I've been getting a lot of email about what are starseeds. Have you heard of a starseed? Am I a starseed? So I wanted to cover the phenomenon known as starseeds because A, I'm getting a lot of email on it, which generally means that somewhere in the universe, we need to be talking about it. And B, there is a lot of, I think, fascinating information out there about starseeds. And there's also a lot of misinformation about starseeds. I mean, you know, the internet is amazing. You can go onto the internet and find out anything about anything. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be true. You know, I have some friends who are obsessed with the dark web. I mean, just absolutely obsessed. And everything must be true if it's on the dark web. You know, and the dark web is just like any other web. Honestly, you know, you've got people who are debunking government conspiracies and posting declassified or still classified information on the dark web. You also have people who, you know, just make stuff up and post it on the dark web, knowing that because it's on the dark web, people will believe it. So I find the dark web interesting. I've never been on the dark web. I feel it. And, you know, there are some real debunked, classified, whatever you want to call it, the people have posted there. But a lot of dark web stuff is just a lot of dark, weird chaos that people post, and nasty stuff and weird, you know, destructive, violent things and whatever. So I can't say that I've ever really surfed the dark web, but feeling into it, it just kind of feels a little icky, you know? And I can't say I'm a fan. I'm not a fan. It's just not for me. So a lot of the information that people are finding about starseeds, a lot of it has been quoted from the dark web. And on the dark web, it's got a very specific tale of starseeds. However, we're going to back up and we're going to explain exactly what a starseed is. You might be listening to this going, what is a starseed? This sounds like a weird 1980s TV show about Star Trek. So here's the thing. A starseed is an individual who has spent far more lifetimes off-world, off of the earth, than they have spent on the earth. I mean, they've spent a lot more time, like for instance, in realms like Sirius AB or Otur. There might be Oturan or what we like to call Arcturian. They may be beings that are far more, resonant with the Pleiades because they've had far more Palladian lives than they've ever had a human life. And a lot of times these souls roll into a human body to bring fantastic spiritual lessons and, you know, social lessons. So a starseed is technically somebody who has spent far more lifetimes off the planet, off of Earth, in a different, what we could call an alien or off-world culture, okay? These are people who, before they were wearing the old person suit down here in the third dimension, crawling around the rock called Earth, were living elongated lives out on Sirius AB, or they were living massively long lives in the Pleiades, or long lives out in Otur. And so we've got these people who are now deciding to come and join the human race and bring the awareness of these different cultures here to being human. So for a lot of people who read about starseeds, they're reading about beings who are now inhabiting a human body as opposed to having more lives as a human being and being a human soul. So technically speaking, if we inhabit a body, we're human, right? But not everybody, gang, this is just life. Not everybody is the same if we pop the human hood. We do, just like popping a hood on a Ford, that might have a Chevy engine in it that's been souped up. Just because it's a Ford body doesn't mean much. So, when it comes right down to it, what we've got here is that humanity is a fascinating cacophony of DNA that was mixed with off-world DNA that also mixed with indigenous life here on Earth, which is why we're continuously striving to find the missing link, and we can't. We just find Neanderthal man and we found Cro-Magnon man, and there's, neither the twain shall meet, because the link we're looking for is off-world, it's not on-world. So what I find fascinating about this is when we talk about starseeds, we're not talking about a hybrid species between an alien race and a human race. Technically, right now, that's actually called most people, especially if you're white. You've got that Sirius AB genome walking around in you. So if you want to meet an alien and you're Caucasian, go look in the mirror. There you go. Rock on. You've met ET. Look at you go. You are expanding your friend horizons. I am so proud of you. Yet when we look at starseeds, they are not hybrids, okay? These are human beings whose souls on other worlds spent a lot of time learning in other off-world cultures. Then those souls choose a physical body to be born into, and they rock and roll the knowledge from other, quite frankly, more advanced social and spiritual planetary realms. Now, why do we have starseeds? Why do we need starseeds? Are human beings not enough? Is it not enough that we excel as humans and can learn and grow? And is everybody a weird thing now? Are we all a starseed or part alien or part elemental? Is there no such thing as just a good old-fashioned human being? Well, there is. I would say the most pure strain of human that we can find is the Aboriginal culture. And the second most pure strain of human that we can find is in Africa, is the African culture. And everybody else kind of around the world, had just a little bit of noodling going on genetically with them. There have been some indigenous nations, Native Americans and indigenous peoples of northern Russia also, that were very minimally, if at all, noodled with from off-world DNA. But I'll tell you, our Eastern cultures, our Western cultures, European cultures, especially our Nordic cultures, all of these cultures popped up, all these areas of the world, having this Cro-Magnon man who came out of nowhere. So why is this important to make the distinction? Well, because a lot of times when you read around online, especially if you're in the dark web, boy, look out for the dark web, you hear a lot of stories about human-alien hybrids, and that's what a starseed is. Technically speaking, no. There are human-alien hybrids, but that's not what we're talking about today. Starseeds are spirit beings that have chosen a 100% garden variety red, white, and blue American body, or they've chosen a red, white, and blue French body, or, they've chosen some sort of actual indigenous human DNA body, yet most of their lives come from an off-world realm. And it's interesting because we're throwing starseed around. It's kind of the big metaphysically charged phrase for people. For a while, it was crystal children. And then before that, it was indigo children. And now it's starseeds. So in fact, there are a ton of starseeds walking all over the earth. And a lot of kids who are diagnosed with what we call, sensitivity disorders, or we say, oh, they're on the spectrum. A lot of those kids have surfed in from off-world cultures, and they're looking at our human culture, and they're like, this is stupid. Just say what you mean. I don't want to be around giant crowds of people. These people, when apes get in a group, they get crazy and angry, and I don't want to be part of that group rage. I mean, not to suggest, of course, if a child is on the spectrum, they have to be a starseed. However, I do meet many children who have, in my opinion, I suppose technically they're on the spectrum by our standards, yet I would like to say in this regard, mistakenly put on the spectrum, because they're certainly not on the spectrum for a starseed, yet they might be on the spectrum for a human being who isn't, humans are pretty resilient, gang. We're not super sensitive. Well, we're kind of sensitive to certain energies, but we're not hysterically sensitive yet. We should be. To global energies, we can be kind of weirded out if we're an empath and we're in a room full of weird people. Certain people out there in the world feel weird weather coming. So I'm not suggesting that humanity itself is not sensitive. It's just that the beings that have evolved on this planet and only evolved on this planet as humans are really relying a lot on the grounding capability of the planet Earth. So folks wandering around out there in human land who have a lot more indigenous human DNA in them, okay, they're going to roll better with changes in season. They're going to roll better with a little bit of chaos. They're going to roll better with empathy. They're going to understand some of the basic tribal components of humanity a little better than a starseed who basically just, surfs in from having countless lives on Sirius AB and then coming into a culture like Earth where we are so summarily disconnected from all of our not only our chakral points, not only our third eye, we are heavily disconnected from the spirit and from the energies of nature. Now, not all human beings, gang, obviously, but I'm talking in general as the human culture. I mean, we're still obsessed with throwing 5G towers everywhere so that we can help out our military drones. Be damned our brains, but our military drones will have really good internet access because that's important, right? So back to starseeds. When we talk about starseeds, I'm going to give you some truths and some falses, okay? Starseeds, again, a false is they are not a hybrid between humans and aliens. That would dictate some sort of physical genetic mastering there. And starseeds are spirits that have spent a predominant amount of time in an off-world realm, and now they're surfing into a human experience. And there are some starseeds that have had a couple of human experiences. It's not like we have to you don't have to just come from Sirius AB. Okay, you could be a starseed who had a couple of lifetimes here. And we see starseeds incarnate in situations where they are scientists, teachers, they are community builders, they are innovators. They are people who are wanting to bring something pretty extraordinary to the earth. And of course, gang, we have human beings, human souls in human bodies that bring all kinds of extraordinary things to earth. So again, it is a misconception that starseeds are a physical human alien hybrid. They are a spirit from an off-world realm who spent most of its time on an off-world realm that is now inhabiting a human body. Okay. And we do have people that have mostly spent human lives here on Earth. So those human spirits, if you want to call them that. I mean, a spirit's a spirit, okay? A spirit is a spirit. Yeah, we're going to talk the spiritual intelligence contained within the spirit can come from other realms. So that spirit is bringing in expertise from other realms. A lot of the starseed lore that I see out on the internet is a little misleading because it confuses the gift of empathy with being a starseed. Now, many starseeds are massive empaths, especially if they come from Oturan or they come from the Pleiades. Massive, massive empaths. A lot of the star seeds that we see coming in as very literal, or what I'm going to say mistaken on the spectrum, are coming in from Sirius. Those are Sirius AB folks. And you have to remember that the folks from Sirius were the ones that contributed to, well, they did build our pyramids in Giza. So, when we think about the different personality types of these off-world races, I don't want to say species, that sounds super racist. These off-world communities bring to Earth some pretty amazing gifts and talents when you stuff them in a human body. So I would say a misunderstanding about starseeds is there's a popular mythology going around that if you're an introvert, if you don't like crowds, if you're sensitive to, a lot of people being around you, you're definitely a starseed. Well, you might be a starseed, but I'm telling you, you're probably just an introvert and you're probably a massive empath, okay? You might be a starseed. However, just because you have those particular traits within you doesn't necessarily mean you're a starseed. It would be more accurate to say that starseeds evaluate crowds in a different way. They evaluate people in a different way. And they have a different outlook on what is possible for humanity and for the coming together of people. There's another popular, I'm going to call it a mythology or a story, that starseeds somehow have a moral, that they feel a moral superiority to the rest of the human race. Like they almost look down their noses on people. Actually, that's not a starseed trait that I've noticed. That's kind of an arrogant human being trait. And so I wouldn't say that folks who look down their nose at other people because they think they're morally superior are starseeds. I think they might just need a swift kick in the butt, and just saying, hey, we're all equal. I don't care if you surfed in from Sirius AB. I don't care if you're highly elemental. I don't care if you're a human alien hybrid. I don't care if you're an interdimensional or some sort of djinn creature wearing a person suit. Nobody gets to be morally superior than anybody else on the planet Earth, because that's what Earth is. It's a giant playing field that equalizes all learning opportunities. Seriously. Earth is a giant playing field that equalizes all learning opportunities. That's pretty sweet if you think about it. So, when I hear people say, well, I can't help that I look down my nose on humanity because I'm a starseed, I just want to say, actually, I think that's just a bad attitude. I'm sorry. I think a place of humility would actually reflect a heck of a lot more the starseeds that I've met. The starseeds that I've met are here to serve other people. They are not here to subjugate other people. Now, if you have a starseed that has not been to Earth since the time of the pharaohs and they come from Sirius AB, okay, maybe they've got a little bit of a moral superiority complex. Because really, when we're talking about the pharaohs and the pharaohs who were off-worlders and they came from Sirius, those pharaohs that came here were huge. They subjugated human beings. They were tall. They were big. The Egyptians did not mistakenly represent these giant beings in their carvings because they were giving them grandiose structure. Because of their egos, they were representing how freaking big the beings from Sirius AB were. Now, those beings did kind of get off a little bit on subjugating humanity, okay? So, if a person is a starseed and hasn't been back to Earth since the time of the pharaohs and they are from Sirius, they might not have caught up with the press release here that actually Earth is just a giant melting pot and everybody is equal down here. Everybody. Good, evil, elemental, human, starseed, off-worlder, interdimensional, however you want to lay it out, this is the universal playing field, okay? So I can't actually say that a sign of being a starseed is a moral superiority. I would more say that in that vein, a sign of being a starseed is being able to see more than one option in morality and or being able to say, okay, this is what we consider immoral or wrong, so I'm not going to do it. Yet let's have compassion for those who fall into those pockets of, if you want to call it, immorality, because obviously they got some wounds in there. Starseeds generally pack with them a massive amount of compassion, because we as a species, we haven't really been here as the third iteration of human beings. We haven't really been here that long, and so we are still learning to access our empathy as a primary social glue or bond. Now, you look at a lot of these amazing, I would call them cultures from off-world cultures, and what you're seeing, I mean, geez, gang, you take the folks up in the Sirius AB star system. That culture is hundreds and hundreds, if not millions, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years old. That is a really old culture, really old. Then you go over to the Pleiades, and that is several million years old. And the Pleiadians, what we call the Pleiadians, there's many, many races of beings out by the Pleiades, which is the Seven Sisters, the Subaru logo. Those beings out there, gang, they've been around forever. And so we are just a little blink on their timeline. And a lot of the Pleiades sports beings that are non-corporeal. They are strictly vibrational. And they'll come in as these big columns of blue light. And in the work that I do with angelic life, man, they're really close to that angelic frequency. They vibrate at such a high level, yet they're not angels, although they do help out with a lot of the angelic realm's duties, because they're kind of the Pleiades, and the Pleiades is all about higher consciousness. They came to Earth years and years and years ago, many thousands of years ago, affected the Vedic cultures, the cultures in India, where you see the big blue gods and goddesses. You see the Vishnus up in the sky. That's the Pleiades influence. We see the Pleiades influence in Hinduism, not necessarily in what Christianity wrongly calls multi-god religion, because Hinduism believes in one God with many facets or formats. Yet what we see with the Pleiades is an amazing adherence to not one specific savior in Hinduism, yet a modality of behavior that saves us all. And so one could call that God within, or one could call that just being a good person and doing the right thing. So a starseed coming in from the Pleiades is going to have a very universal consciousness. That starseed is going to want to be a healer. They're going to want to uplift people. They're going to want to be a teacher and advocate for really beautiful emotional and spiritual change. That is, again, that's someone who's coming in from the particular lens of being a starseed in, the Pleiades. And there, a lot of times the starseeds coming in from the Pleiades are very, very interested in spiritual higher growth. They are interested in the evolution of our connection with one another. All right. So then if we move on to starseeds from Sirius, the recent starseeds from Sirius really are all about the educational process, and they're more almost scientifically based. So starseeds that come in from Sirius are oftentimes talking about frequency, they're talking about vibration, they're talking about science, they're talking about ways of governing one another that are collective rather than the oligarchies we have now, which were bred out of letting the republic kind of dissolve into the we the people democracy, which really demanded that all of our elected officials do exactly what we want, which gets a little difficult because they have access to information we don't. And if we, the people, decide all cats in our group think all cats need to die, then all cats die. And the republic is going, but wait a minute, that's not very lawful to put all the cats in the whole country to death. So, unchecked democracy breeds oligarchs, which is what we've got right now. So a starseed from Sirius would be very invested in social structure, in science structure, in how we can bring and change our frequency, the choices we actively make. There's an activism edge to starseeds from Sirius AB. And the folks from Sirius, they kind of went through a rough patch with humanity of subjugation. And really, in their history, like in the Catholic history, the Catholic Church has history of the Crusades. And that was not a positive time for the church. And that's when the church went around and killed everybody if they didn't submit to Christ. And even if they did submit to Christ, they oftentimes just killed them because they were sending people out to spread a message and to spread a political agenda. So in the same way that the Catholic Church has a bit of a hink in its get along with its ideology back in the day of crusades, Sirius AB, they're conquestors. They get out there and they terraform. They get out there and they develop worlds. For those that follow the Atlantis and Lemuria mythology, and I just say mythology because by the time we've gotten to where we are now with Atlantis and Lemuria, we're a little far off of what they actually were, but that's okay. Whatever. We get the point. But Atlantis is said to have been the science culture, and Lemuria was all the feelers and the hippies and let's love everybody. So if we can just really generalize a culture, again, this is bordering on racism here, so I apologize to my off-world peeps here. However, overall, the Sirius AB culture tends to be more technically related. And so we receive a lot of our scientists and our activists and the folks who want to deal in frequency. A lot of those folks surfed in from Sirius as those starseeds. Now, you have a lot of starseeds, a lot of them coming forward right now from Otur. And Otur is probably one of my most favorite off-world realms, most likely because we have the most emotionally in common with the Oturan, or the Arcturians, as people like to call them. And the Oturan definitely affected and deeply affected the way that Eastern religion, through Taoism, if we can even call it a religion, it's more of a modality, yet they were really more part of Buddhism, part of Taoism. Again, you'll notice that these particular modalities of being, whether they come from India or they through Hinduism, or they come from the East, or they come from wherever they come from, the Taoism and Buddhism do not have one giant central figure to worship. Now, Buddhism has the Buddhas that come through and bring knowledge, but nobody's demanding that you worship the Buddha to save you. There's not a savior story with the Buddhas. And Taoism has no central figure whatsoever. It just talks about doing the right thing for the right reasons and how we are part of all things. And the Oturan they are Taoism right up the middle. We are part of all things, and all things have a balance, and everything that we put into the world is our world is going to be what we put into it. So the Starseeds surfing in from Oturan have a very specific outlay there where they are in a position to be, they're the ones who want to care for the planet. Again, you see some folks who are Oturan, big healers, big fancy modalities in government. The Oturan are, I would say, the most touchy-feely of the off-world races. They're way more touchy-feely than Sirius AB. Now, the folks in Sirius can be touchy. They can be feely, especially the starseeds that come down here and inhabit a human body and decide that, they need to integrate, because we as human beings are very tactile. We're very tactile. I mean, oh God, just look at the porn industry. We are obsessed with the physical to a really crazy point. So, again, these are broad brushstrokes, and I've met starseeds from the Pleiades who were very into farming. I mean, you're always going to find a variance. Again, I'm giving very broad brushstrokes in terms of the types of starseeds that I've met. And a lot of the starseeds that come in from Oturan are here. These are green energy folks. These are folks that want to help clean the oceans up. These are the little kids you see online, the little videos of the little kids just sobbing because we're killing the planet. That's Otur, hands down, because the Oturan are so connected to everything. They're connected to their planet. They're connected to each other. It is a culture of deep connection and empaths. Big empaths. Now, it's important to recognize when we're talking about all these off-world cultures that there is massive merit to the indigenous human species. And the reason that these off-world cultures even bother with coming down here and, zipping on a human suit, and that, by the way, is the rule. Okay? If you're going to come down here on the earth and wander around full time, you have to crawl into the human suit and you got to zip it up. Like Jesus had to do that. The Buddhas had to do that. Dalai Lamas had to do that. You got to crawl into the human suit and zip it up. And once you do, you get to roam in your human DNA spacesuit and do your thing. So it's important to notice that, in this discussion that some of the biggest spiritually gifted people, some of the hugest, most giant empaths, some of the individuals who have the most wide thought process that encompasses, higher thought and medicine and science and art and social structure and innovation are human spirits and human bodies, okay? So we don't need to assign away all of our gifts. It's just that what I'm seeing is a lot of off-worlders surfing into human form to try to combat some of the innate tribalism and mammalian territorialism that human beings also have in our genome. So we've got some of these starseeds coming in going, gang, can we just not freak the flip out and just clean the ocean and, love each other? Here's a beer. Are we good? Wow. We're seeing a lot of that energy to offset, like I said, the angry, chest-slapping, mammalian human race that gets a little Old West and a little hormonal. Oh, it gets a little interesting to be human. So when we think about starseeds here, let me just do a super quick recap. You may be an empath, doesn't necessarily mean you're a starseed. You might be an introvert. It doesn't necessarily mean you're a starseed. You might feel a moral superiority to other, and I sure hope you don't, because goodness, that just sells you short, really. Yet it's probably not a starseed with that, but maybe there's a chance that you're from Sirius AB. However, you can tell you're a starseed when you look at other people and you just flat don't get it. I mean, you just don't get it. You might get part of it. You might get the food. You might get the intimacy. You might get the sex. You might get that. Yet you look at the potential that people have to be so easily manipulated or easily brainwashed or easily pushed in one direction or another. And you start to look at that and go, what the heck is wrong with everybody? I don't even feel like, I'm in the same genus as these people. And that's not a moral superiority as much as feeling like you are not sharing genome in the response or the tribalistic or mammalian response that others are having. Now, that's a really common starseed trait. Another very common starseed trait is thinking money is just stupid. The idea that we need dead presidents printed on, paper that we can exchange it for food and shelter to a starseed is absolutely ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So we see a lot of these kids surfing in that are in their 20s right now, and we see a lot of starseeds coming in that generation and that age. And you'll also see a lot of disconnection with our millennial population and the idea of great wealth. They're just like, I don't need tons and tons of money. I just, need to be able to trade my neighbor some tomatoes so I can live in my tiny house. What's wrong with you people? And then you've got all the Sirius AB conquest-driven DNA, and human beings go, what are you talking about? We need to own everything, including the moon and the bottom of the ocean, and yay us. So starseeds can be a little confused by what we put a lot of focus on in the United States specifically. I'll just speak from my perspective here since I'm here. But in the USA, my God, it's all about keeping up with the Joneses and having a bigger car and a bigger house. And that is now changing with the consciousness changing with our millennial generation because it's an unrealistic, weird, unobtainable lifestyle. Yet our starseeds tend to look at that and say, yeah, that's not so important. I can live as long as I'm dry and warm and have a decent bed to sleep in and things are good, and as long as I'm helping other people, I can make this happen. So again, it's a bit of I would say a delicate point that I've had people come to me who actually had way more elemental DNA in them than anything else that was mixed with their human DNA. And those folks would come up to me and they'd say, I am freaked out because I don't feel at home here on Earth at all. Now, one of the earmarkers of a starseed is that Earth may feel super foreign. Like you're just not sure how to deal with the emotional scape of people, or what's the story with all these taxes? Or, I'm not really getting driving. What is that about? These are all really rudimentary tasks that we human beings have generationally embedded in our DNA. So the starseed flying in from God knows where, picking up the human suit, is going to be able to access all that DNA that says, hey, by the way, I know how to drive a car and I know how to save money and I know how to hoard because a winter might come and a mammoth might stomp us and a saber-toothed tiger might eat us. I've got all this human DNA in here that says protect the self. So the starseed comes in, accesses that, and then say came from the Pleiades where there's no money. Neither is there money on Otur. Neither is there money in the Sirius A/B star system. They are conquestors, designers, and scientists for the sheer rush of doing something they've never done. That is literally the kink for Sirius A/B. They love to do stuff that they've never, ever done before. So again, you can be a starseed, but you can also be a human empath. And okay, keeping in mind, gang, that all starseeds technically are human because we're wearing a human suit. Okay, I'm just using these terms broadly to delineate what we're talking about today. So you might, be an introvert. Doesn't necessarily mean you're a starseed. You could be an empath. Doesn't necessarily mean you're a starseed. Somebody could be on the spectrum. Yet many of the kids I've met on the spectrum are starseeds, and they are coming in from Sirius. So it's really interesting to me. I've dealt with kids who had severe autism, just severe. And I can almost always find the child within the mental scope there because the vibration that these kids are on is exceptionally high. And one of the things that's kind of cool about the way that I'm wired is I can feel that super high vibration, right? So I can dial to their frequency and either have a conversation, if you want to call it telepathically in their head, of course, or we can just have a conversation where they can feel that I'm actually tapping that frequency. And it's easier for them to communicate with me. So again, there's a lot of misinformation about starseeds, and there's a lot of cool information too. One of the aspects of all starseeds that I've noticed is that they tend to just love outer space. And what's not to love about outer space, gang? Come on. It's interesting. We haven't discovered all of it yet. It's fascinating. You're off the planet. You float. There's a lot about space that's super cool. So it's not, again, suggesting that you have to be a starseed in order to appreciate, space. However, what I do think is interesting here is that starseeds are a bit obsessed with space. Like they're obsessed with what's out there. They're obsessed with interstellar travel. Many of them know that it's possible to create grids on the Earth that are electromagnetic in order for us to bend space-time, in order for us to go to different dimensions and different quadrants of the galaxy through the electromagnetic field of the Earth. That's a huge starseed thing, is Earth grids. And that's also an elemental thing. Okay, so people who have a lot of elemental DNA also are very good with geometric Earth grids. They're really good with that. Yet the starseeds are going to just be crazy obsessed with space. And I've had people think I'm a starseed. I really don't believe I am one. I think I'm a channel, and I think I pull through a lot of really cool information. Yet I don't have the sensation of surfing in from another culture. Spiritual culture, I definitely relate with spiritual culture. So I don't know, maybe I am a starseed. But it's not something that I necessarily relate with. Yet I can identify those starseeds. Holy moly, I can identify them, and I can always tell. And a lot of starseeds also, especially the folks coming in from the Pleiades and the folks coming in from Otur, have a really high vibration. The folks coming in from Sirius do as well. It's just that, you have to remember that the beings from Sirius AB have been here on Earth for a long time, and they used to build structures here, and they used to come and go from here on a regular basis. So they're a little more accustomed to our pecking order, both emotionally and physically here on Earth as a human being, than, say, a starseed that comes in from the Pleiades, which is all about spiritual growth, spiritual enlightenment. Why do we need money? You see a lot of folks going into the healing field that come in from the Pleiades, which again, I find super, super interesting. So I hope this is helping up to this point just to find a little more about what a starseed is. I've had a lot of people go on the dark web and they think that starseeds are a project of the Russian military and some serious AB folk who live in underground facilities in Russia. And there are serious AB folk living in underground facilities in Russia. And the Russian government has been splicing people with them for a long time, seeing if they can create psychic super soldiers. I mean, that's kind of a thing, all right? And you can feel people with off-world physical genome in them, more so than just what I'm talking about with our missing link genome gang. I mean, a lot more spliced in genome. You can feel it when you're around people who have more of that off-world genome in them. It's pretty amazing. And it feels like a high resonant, like a really high, feels like a high vibration. And it's almost unnerving. The people who share more modern physical DNA with the human DNA, who have been physically gene spliced with beings from other realms, those folks they just feel a little, I don't want to say they feel off because that sounds rude. I don't mean it rude. But you can feel it though, gang. I mean, they feel like they're just kind of staring through you instead of looking at you. And it becomes a pretty big, weird challenge. And so eye contact is sometimes a big giveaway for starseeds. Because as mammals, you'll notice that apes, as primates, don't just stare at each other. That is a sign of aggression. They might look at each other and smile and, then they kind of look away. Look at human beings. When you're looking at somebody, you're not just staring at them the whole time. You're looking at them the whole time you're talking. Here you are staring. I mean, that's called inappropriate eye contact. That makes people nervous because in our genetic code, we're primate. It's like, why are you staring at me? You want to throw down? What's your problem? Look away a little bit. Break that gaze. Off-worlders don't come from that culture of the primate background. So you might be talking to somebody who is a starseed, who is wearing a, almost 100% human suit, who's just looking right at you when they talk, and they never vary. They don't look away. They just stare at you. And then when they're done talking, they're staring at you. And this is part of the complaint that I've had, not that I personally have had, but I've had run by me by people who have family members who are on the spectrum. Either they're making no eye contact whatsoever, because we as humans, we really do push out a ton of energy through the spirit, and it comes out the eyes. The spirit is the window to the world, and the eyes are the window to the spirit. Therefore, the eyes are the window to the world for the spirit. So when we talk about starseeds, again, we can have exaggerated eye contact. We can have a way larger than normal, I would say, aptitude for healing or for spiritual teaching. We might have a huge science application. We might have an ability to seem like at 26 years old, you've got this soul that is so old and so settled and understands the finer points of compromise and compassion. I mean, all of these are starseed traits. So again, if you're a dark web person, just know that some of the stuff out there on starseeds gets a little Area 51. And it's not to say it's not true in terms of what the Russian government has been doing with our super soldiers. That is a true thing. And believe me, we've been trying it here in the United States too. Not by the United States government. These are by these Black Ops Pentagon programs that eat a majority of our defense budget. And when the United States is spending more on defense than every single first world ally out there combined, including China, Japan, France, and England. You have to start asking yourself, what are they doing with all that Pentagon money that nobody has access to? Well, they're doing a lot of genetic research, and they're doing a lot of reverse engineering with current off-world technology that gets these physical off-worlders from point A to point B. Now, again, it's important to remember that starseeds come into a body. So starseeds can come in upon birth. That's usually who I run into, are the starseeds who are born that way. We also have people who have had near-death experiences, or they did die on a table, and all of a sudden something else walks into them, and the person's personality is totally changed. They're like this old wise soul that is only really, interested in spiritual studies. Lots and lots of case studies there, gang, of what they call walk-ins. That's called a walk-in. So a walk-in is, of course, someone who is a human spirit, or in this case, an off-world spirit, who walks into a human body when the human spirit decides it's time to go. And the human spirit can just say, I'm done. I'm out. I don't need to keep living here. Yet we've got this perfectly good physical spacesuit. You don't have to throw the whole spacesuit out just because you don't want to use it. Come on, let's recycle, humans. So you might have a being from an off-world realm that says, I've got some stuff that I've got some lessons I'd like to learn. I've got some contributions I can make to humanity. So I'm just going to take that body over, if you don't mind. And the human spirit will go, and the starseed will enter it. Now, that can also happen with other human spirits. People have gone into comas and come out of the comas, and their closest spouses and family members just swear to God they're not the same person. And of course, it's very important to point out medical science here too, because the brain dictates 100% how we present ourselves. So if we really scramble our brain up, of course we're going to seem like a different person, Yet what I'm talking about is when there is not severe neurological disruption, and a person, the human, just says, I'm done being here. If somebody else wants to use this body, that's great. Now, it's important to recognize that with walk-ins, people can really fantasize about what a walk-in is. Most walk-ins, 99% of them, are very high vibrational beings. Because again, if you go on the dark web, you're going to find a lot of stuff about how there's demons walking into people's bodies. Well, as we discussed on the last podcast, it's very difficult for a demonic being or a very chaotic dark being to actually inhabit a human body whose DNA it literally is in a nucleus that can't touch the flesh because it's vibrating at such a high level that the DNA dies. I mean, seriously. So we've got these portholes to light within us. And it's not like, oh my God, I'm now going to be this open being and I'm going to get walked in by a crazed off-worlder. No. When people have a walk into their body, those souls have made a covenant somewhere along the road. And they have said, you know what? I think when I'm about 30 years old, I'm going to be done with life. And I'm very happy for my loved ones to mostly have me around after that and my physical self, but I need to go. And that's usually where you find a covenant, for these off-world beings to walk in. We do have interdimensional beings, gang. I haven't talked about them much. They to me really do fall in the realm of off-worlder, even though they're interdimensional and not on another planet. And a lot of those interdimensional beings are also very high vibration beings. There's some that really aren't. If you've heard of shadow people, those things are a pain in the butt, God. I swear to God, shadow people are humans a million years in the future. And they're coming back somehow to put themselves off phase just to play video games to see if they can make us do stupid stuff. And do things like bite electrical cords and just really weird, strange things. Pretty sure they're humans somewhere in there. Yet, technically speaking, shadow people dwell in a different dimension. So when we look at all of this, gang, and we look at a starseed and how to maximize, if you do think you are a starseed, you probably are, okay? Because it's not typical for a mammal, for a primate, to say, I must be part alien, or my soul is, or I came from someplace else. That's not a typical human response. Now, again, it is typical if you are somebody who has the great gift of empathy or the clairgifts, clairsentient, clairvoyant. It is pretty typical for that individual to not feel like they fit in very well in the earth. One of the earmarkers for starseeds that you see a lot online, and this one kind of bums me out because I don't think it's accurate, is that if you don't feel like you fit in, you're a starseed. Well, that's not necessarily true. You could just be a very advanced human soul in the middle of a bunch of young souls that are all throwing rocks at a bunny rabbit, and it's just making your stomach turn. That doesn't necessarily mean you're a starseed. Usually there's a perfect storm of I guess, indicators that indicate a starseed. One of them is a huge fascination with physics on a quantum level and also, space exploration. That's huge. Another one is understanding people in a really weird old soul way when you're like a little bitty kid and everybody's like, oh my God, he's a 50-year-old in a 3-year-old body. That can be a starseed thing or just an old human soul. Starseeds tend to be very fussy about what they eat because the actual process of chewing food, of masticating food, is really kind of old west if you're from certain parts of the galaxies, gang. The idea that we chew our food, we swallow our food, it makes its way through our our stomach, our upper intestines, our lower intestines, and then it comes out as waste. There's a lot of off-world cultures that think twice about entering a human body. This is a true story. Because we poop. That's a thing. I swear to God, that's a thing. It's not just the pooing, it's the peeing, it's all of the eliminatory functions because our off-world cousins don't eliminate the way that we do. We have a very specific, very ingenious biology that is very tied to the planet Earth. It's very tied to our design here. And it's tied to functionality on the planet. Because not almost all 8 billion of us, yet if you get a significant number of people together and they're eating grasses and you take their poo, then you can take that poo and use it as that grows crops. And obviously human poo has a lot of bugs in it that animal poo doesn't have. That can be pretty challenging if you're going to grow crops out of it. Yet the point being is it can work as fertilizer. So the fact that we don't want to leave anything behind, the fact that a starseed could be uncomfortable with the idea of masticating food or defecating, that again can be a big sign of a starseed. Now, when kids are young, they diagnose them with a sensitivity disorder because they don't want to poo. Or kids that will go to the restroom and just bawl as they're pooing because it freaks them right out. Ooh, that's a pretty big earmarker that little one might be surfing in from a culture where they don't actually chew food and eliminate it. They soak vibration through their, this is what I think is fascinating. They actually take in vibration through their pores. If you're on Sirius AB, that's how you eat up there. You take in vibration and color bandwidths through your pores, or what we consider pores. And that allows them to eat the resonation off of that area. The folks from Oturan, they do eat, but it's for pleasure. It's not necessarily for sustenance. And it's like this fruit-like stuff. They don't eat meat on Oturan. And mostly they just pass energies around, which I find fascinating, through these humongous buildings that are made of this stuff that looks like fool's gold, but it's not. So, I don't know what the heck it is, but it's a transmissionary type of brick. It transmits. It's a brick that transmits. And they build their structures out of it, so all their structures transmit. Everything transmit on Otur. Everything does. So, when we look at what makes a starseed and what doesn't make a starseed, having that innate curiosity about space is human, having a driving need to get up there can oftentimes indicate that you're not from Earth underneath your hood. Because really, people think space is super interesting, okay? Yet we're not necessarily clamoring to own space. Some people are, but that's not going to happen. So as we wrap around a little bit to the fact that here we are on a planet of diverse beings. We have, the Nephilim running around, which were human angel hybrids, and that just really didn't go well genetically. That was not a good combination. Then you've got human extraterrestrial, actual physical splices or hybrids running around the planet. You've got starseeds that are amazing old soul visionary beings that walk in from someplace else that really just want to share the love and exuberance that is possible, and oftentimes will end up struggling with the same things empaths struggle with. Large crowds, lots of people, understanding where people are coming from. Until they get one-on-one with an individual, then that's a different story. Then everything is making more sense, right? I hope this is helping, gang, because it really, I don't want to say it bothers me, yet it worries me when there's so much misinformation about something out there. So remember, weird prolonged, I call it weird. It's probably not weird in different off-world cultures, but for humans, odd, prolonged, super prolonged eye contact can be really odd. And that, again, is indicative of beings from another planet. Their eyes work very differently than ours. You can literally see exactly what we mean by looking at our eyes, humanity. And humanity, in that case, we can read each other like crazy. So a true starseed gang is generally here for enlightenment of themselves and others. They are here to help start a new system of being. And obviously, there's a lot of humans here that are here to start a new system of being. So I hope that's been a little more helpful in laying out some parameters of what a starseed is and isn't. And again, unless you're coming in from Sirius AB, the whole idea that starseeds have to be haughty or disconnected or whatever, gang, really keep in mind that's a human ego thing. That's an ego thing. That's our human showing its face right there. Throwing a tantrum, feeling underrepresented, whatever you want to call it. But that is a human that's acting like that. So if you think you're a starseed, there's lots and lots of reading online. Just make sure that, there's a lot of, almost make starseeds sound aloof or better than, or again, hitting on all of the empath traits as well as the introvert traits. So not all introverts, not all empaths are starseeds. So why would people want to believe there's a starseed, in their family, or that they are one? Well, because it's kind of exotic, it's kind of interesting, and it does actually explain why a lot of people have zero connection to human culture that are starseeds. And they have to learn how to interface with the human culture, with variants and, poop and all of that. It's just such a mind blower for these folks. So if you know somebody that you're pretty sure is a starseed, or they think they're a starseed, they honestly probably are. I just want to caution everybody that, by the definition of most starseeds, that makes every empath and every introvert a starseed, and that's just not the case. So if you really think you are one, you probably are one. I mean, like I said, it's not very typical for a human being to wander around and say, God, I'm just not human. I just don't feel all the way human. And, it's also important to note, gang, just in the last few minutes we have, that I get this in there. With the fact that we have transferred from a spiritually three-dimensional environment to a 5D environment, we've moved up in our resonation. We've moved up in who we are. So as we've moved into that resonation, it's also going to make us feel like we're not connected with some folks who have not uplifted, if you will, in that same way, their vibration. We're not going to feel like the same species as somebody who, if you're into love, okay, you're not going to feel like you're the same species if you're standing next to somebody who's just full of hatred, because that vibration is not going to feel like you or your family or what you recognize. So understanding that moving into our 5D environment right now really does involve a lot of grace And if you're 100% human, count yourself lucky, because there's very few 100% humans left on Earth. That's kind of cool if that's what your story is. Most of us have a lot of off-world DNA mixed into our physical DNA. And if you're somebody who thinks you're a starseed, for reasons that maybe it's easier for you to communicate with extraterrestrial craft, it's easier for you to communicate with people telepathically. These are all signs, again, of being a starseed and sharing that genome with extraterrestrials or off-worlders. Yet, it's important to note that we've got such a melting pot for humanity right now, especially with the elemental aspects in our genome. I mean, that's our fae, our fair folk, our fairies, our Bigfoot, our rock people. We do carry genome from those folks within us. I mean, it's pretty fascinating to me where all that comes from. So just know that, gang. And woo, there was a lot of information on Starseeds, but I hope it clears some things up. And again, if you think you're a Starseed, you probably are. And if you think you're just sensitive and you like Star Trek and you like space, but you also really love your mountains and camping and being on the earth and the idea of family, and, maybe you're just a Star Trek enthusiast. Just because we like space, we don't have to be a starseed. And why do I make all these distinctions? Because I don't think we really actually need to label ourselves, gang. The human species is so diverse at this point. We are such a melting pot. I'm just not so sure of the wisdom of all these labels, only from the perspective that the feminine time frame is asking us to amalgamate in conscious thought, not to replicate, by the way, not to become each other, but to come together in what we are in order to pool our differences for the highest good. So if we're really focusing on our differences instead of focusing on, gee, I'm a starseed, I know that, maybe I'm from Sirius, maybe I'm from the Pleiades, maybe I'm from Oturan, I'm going to bring through what I can bring through. I don't necessarily need the attention from people saying I'm a starseed, yet I know that the work that I do is amazing, and maybe I can share this fact with some very close friends of mine. So they, my quirky, funky, awesome personality makes a little more sense, You do what is ultimately appropriate for you in your life, okay? Yet know that our time frame is asking all of us to come together for the highest good of the all. No matter where you came from, no matter what you got under your hood, we are all human if we're wandering this planet to some degree or another. Thanks for listening, everybody. For those of you on Patreon, thank you for supporting the Patreon site. Hopefully, we've got some really kind of cool, exciting new stuff coming up for all of our Patreon subscribers. Even if you're starting at the $5 level or the $55 level, all Patreon subscribers are going to have some fun programming opportunities, which I think is going to be neat to make sure that we can get to you all. And for those of you that are tuning in, listening on our podcast archives, whether those archives are coming through iTunes or Google Play, whether they're coming through Stitcher, whether they're coming through Spotify or TuneIn, wherever you're searching in, we love to have you here too. And if you want to hear the most up-to-date podcasts, period, subscribe on our YouTube channel for $5 a month, gang. You get these no commercial hour-long podcasts. You get one a week for $5 a month, and you can be caught up because our wonderful archives are running a month behind our Patreon site. So everybody, thank you for being here. Whether you're following on iTunes or you're in our Patreon site, it is all of our awareness and conscious choice to bring what we know into this plane of existence that's going to save our bacon, come through our crazy weather and our 5G towers and all the crazy weirdness. Our vibration of love is what ends up saving the day. So go love on each other, and I will see you all next week.